All right, so are you ready to dive into the world of AI designing proteins?
I am. Should be fascinated.
It really is. We'll unpack some really cutting-edge research from Nature. Um, really going to try to explain how AI is changing protein design and what it means like for medicine and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
This technology really is revolutionizing so much. Medicine, biology, it's changing everything.
We've got a lot to cover today, but before we even get to the AI part, we need to talk about proteins.
Of course, yeah.
They're often called like the workhorses of life. But what does that even mean?
Well, proteins, they're involved in almost every biological process. So like transporting molecules, kicking off chemical reactions, fighting infections.
Whoa.
They do it all. And here's the thing, the function of a protein, it all comes down to its 3D structure.
So it's like a key fitting into a lock.
Yeah, exactly. If that protein's not folded the right way, it's basically useless.
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out that 3D structure, that's been the big puzzle for scientists for so long.
Yeah, I've heard of scientists using methods like X-ray crystallography to figure it out.
Right.
But it sounds so complicated.
It is. It's so complex.
Yeah.
And expensive. These techniques can take years.
Wow.
Years of research. And even then, they don't always give you a clear answer. Some proteins are just so hard to work with.
So is that where the AI comes in?
Yeah. It's really incredible. AI, especially this program called AlphaFold from Google's DeepMind, it's been revolutionary, a total game changer.
I've heard so much about AlphaFold. What makes it so special?
Well, AlphaFold uses deep learning. It's been trained on this huge data set of protein structures and sequences. We're talking about like hundreds of thousands of structures.
Wow.
And millions of sequences. It's kind of like, imagine a detective. This detective has seen every single criminal mugshot in the world.
Okay.
So you give AlphaFold this protein's amino acid sequence, which is like its fingerprint, and then it predicts its 3D structure. And it's amazingly accurate.
So do we not even need those lab experiments anymore? Can we just use AlphaFold instead?
In many cases, yeah. And what's even more amazing is how fast it is.
Right.
What used to take years can now be done in like hours, sometimes even minutes.
Wow.
It's incredible.
That's amazing. But how do we know it works? Has AlphaFold been tested?
Oh, absolutely. There's this competition. It's called CASP, the Critical Assessment of Protein Structure Prediction. And all the best protein structure prediction programs compete.
Okay, so like a protein prediction Olympics.
Basically.
Okay, and how did AlphaFold do?
It completely dominated. Like, remember that detective we talked about? Imagine AlphaFold is competing against a bunch of rookie detectives. AlphaFold would solve the case before the rookies even showed up.
Wow.
Scientists were shocked. It was as accurate as those old, really hard experiments, even for proteins that had confused researchers for years.
It's amazing to think that now we've gone from all those complicated experiments to AI predicting protein structures.
Yeah.
And so fast.
And it gets even crazier. AlphaFold is really impressive, but it's just the start. Scientists started to think, what if AI could do even more? What if we could use AI to create totally new proteins, ones that don't even exist in nature?
That's wild. So you're saying like we can design proteins from scratch?
Basically, it's like imagine giving an AI a paintbrush and it starts painting these incredible masterpieces. Except instead of paint, it's using the building blocks of life.
So how does that even work? How do you teach an AI to design something as complicated as a protein?
A lot of the latest tools use something called diffusion. It's kind of similar to those AI image generators, like DALL-E or Midjourney. They've been all over the internet.
Right.
Basically, they're trained on huge amounts of data, in this case, protein structures.
Mm-hmm.
And then they learn to create new structures that have the same characteristics.
So it's like the AI is learning the language of proteins, and then it can write its own protein poetry.
That's a great way to put it. There's this one AI tool, RFdiffusion. It was created in David Baker's lab at the University of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
They also created RosettaFold, another really good protein structure prediction tool.
So they're really on the cutting edge of this whole field.
Yeah, they're doing some amazing work. For example, they used RFdiffusion to design proteins that can bind to certain molecules. And this is huge for medicine, especially for developing new drugs.
How so?
Well, a lot of drugs work by binding to specific proteins, right? So think about the possibilities if we can design proteins to target exactly what we want.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say we want to block a protein that causes cancer. How would we use RFdiffusion to do that?
You'd give RFdiffusion the information about that cancer protein, kind of like a blueprint. And the AI would then generate all these different protein structures that it thinks could bind to it.
So then we just make those proteins in the lab and test them out?
Not quite. I mean, we could, but it would take forever to make all of them. Remember those confidence scores we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, scientists use computer simulations to test out the AI-designed proteins virtually. They're looking for the ones that look most promising. The confidence scores help them narrow it down.
So it's like a virtual audition for proteins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can eliminate the bad ones before even stepping into a lab.
That's so efficient. But how well do these AI-designed proteins actually work when they're tested for real?
The results have been really exciting so far. One study used RFdiffusion to design proteins that could bind to this protein called EGFR. It's often overactive in certain cancers. And they made over 700 designs.
700? That's a lot of proteins.
And get this, out of all the designs they tested, 5 of them were able to bind to that EGFR protein.
5 out of 700. Doesn't sound like it worked that well.
It might not sound like a lot, but it's actually really good. It's about the same as, or even better than, what you get with traditional protein engineering.
Okay.
And the coolest part is, this field is changing so fast, those numbers are only going to get better as AI gets more powerful.
So the future is bright for AI-designed proteins.
Definitely. And it's not just medicine. This technology could change everything. Imagine personalized medicine, where we design proteins for each person's specific needs.
Wow.
Or proteins that can clean up pollution. Or maybe even use AI to design totally new materials, things we haven't even thought of yet.
It's incredible how much potential this technology has.
And we can't forget about how it could change other areas of science, like evolutionary biology. We could learn so much more about how proteins have evolved over billions of years.
It's really amazing to think about all that potential. Personalized medicine, cleaning up pollution, new materials. We've really only just scratched the surface of what's possible with AI protein design.
It really is a whole new world. And we're not just, making small changes to existing proteins anymore. We're talking about creating completely new biological structures, things that have never even existed before.
Right. It's like in those sci-fi movies where they talk about the dangers of playing God. Are there downsides to this technology? Should we be worried?
Well, it's important to be aware of the risks, right? Anytime you're dealing with a powerful new technology, especially in biology, there's always a chance that something could go wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what if a protein is designed to be helpful, but then it ends up having these unexpected side effects, things we didn't see coming?
Exactly. And that's something researchers are really thinking about. It's why we need to be so careful. We need strict testing, really good safety protocols, and we need those at every single step of the way, from the initial design all the way to using it in the real world.
So we need to be cautious, but not too cautious. We don't want to miss out on all the good this technology can do.
Exactly. It's a balancing act. And this is where it's so important for everyone to work together. Scientists, policymakers, ethicists, we need to talk to each other, figure out the best way to handle this technology.
Right, because it's a big responsibility.
It is. A big responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to come.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. We started with Proteins 101, and now we're talking about AI designing them from scratch.
It's incredible how fast this field is moving.
It really is. And for everyone listening, what do you think are the most important things to consider as this technology keeps getting more powerful? It's a question we all need to be thinking about because this technology could change all of our lives.
That's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.